Well, howdy there, Bronco fans, on this special edition of Bronco Planet, a playoff edition of Bronco Planet. Big game coming up where we had our week to sit back and relax. Yeah. Now the Ravens, we've met this team before, Chris. What are you worried about? Nothing. Give me your thoughts on this game.
Well, let's take a second and look back. You know, midweek when Ray Lewis announces that he's coming back, and you know that's the final home game for really, honestly, in our generation, the premier inside linebacker, maybe with Mike Singletary, maybe Lawrence Taylor on the edge, but he'll go down as one of the greatest linebackers of all time. The Colts didn't stand a chance. Let's be honest. Yeah. You could have had the 85 Bears in there over the past weekend, and the Ravens were going to win that game. Yeah. Looking forward to this week, this is a game, you and I were just talking before we came on, this is a game that if Denver were to lose, ranks up there with that loss to Jacksonville years ago when Michael Dean Perry couldn't get off the field. This is a game that when you look at it side by side, the numbers match up. Everything points to a Denver win, which I think is what you'll see. Yeah, you know, I don't know what happened to this Ravens team. Looked like at the beginning of the year they're going to be pretty tough. Well, everybody's known that the Ravens are getting older, right? Yeah. And but then just like it falls out on them. And when you look at the stats for the year, very mediocre team. I think Flacco's somewhere around 11 or 12 passer. Their receivers somewhere in the high 20s and 30s. You got Ray Rice, who's, you know, multi-purpose. There's no doubt Ray Rice is, you know, a talented player, but 11th in rushing. And I think if you add up Moreno's stats and McGahee's stats, it even beats Ray Rice's rushing yards. So, I mean, and then our sack team with Dumerville and Von Miller. I just don't see there's any possibility outside of it's the NFL and anybody can win a game. Yep. The Broncos are hands down a much better team across the board, offense, defense, and with Peyton Manning, that's just a cherry on top. Yeah, I think there's two things really, Shad, that you look at for Saturday. If you go back to when they played in Week 17 or Week 15, I'm sorry, the two things to me that stand out, one is turnovers. Yep. Ravens had 2 turnovers. Broncos had none. The other thing is rushing yards. Ray Rice, 38 rushing yards. And look at last week. Look at last week, and the Ravens ran for almost 200 yards. Yep. And so that's where I think it comes down to whoever wins those two battles, the turnover game and the rushing yards. We know what the weather is supposed to be. Not likely to be a 400-yard game, you know, for either side passing the ball. So if the defense, you know, I think if they hold Ray Rice somewhere in the 60 to 70-yard range, I think, like we said, a loss this weekend is the opposite of when they beat Pittsburgh last year. As exciting as that was, this would be that disappointing on the other side. I think when I think of last year, the best comparison is when we played New England, right, in the regular season, we got killed. And there was some kind of optimism that, hey, you know, everything didn't go our way, and now we're in the playoffs, and we got this whole Tebow mystique, and we had the Demaryius Thomas touchdown. But deep down in, you're like, hey, you know, we're an 8-8 team, and we shouldn't be this far. And I think that's how it is for the Ravens this year. Denver beat them soundly. You could say, yes, I know, you know, Ray Lewis isn't there. Some of their offensive line wasn't there, another linebacker. But the core of that team is mediocre, and you're coming to Denver, and I just don't think there's any way you stop the Peyton Manning train. Well, and you've seen this year, Shad, you've seen in a couple of very specific examples, the Ravens and even more so the Pittsburgh Steelers, how fast you get old in the NFL. This Ravens team is 2 or 3 years removed. Even last year, they're one held ball in the end zone away from going to the Super Bowl, and that team got old in a hurry. Yeah, absolutely. Now, here's a couple of fun facts for you. There is only one player in the NFL today that is undefeated this year. Do you know who that player is? Undefeated in the NFL. Somebody that... You predicted that he would get a long touchdown this year. Trendon Holiday. Oh, that's right. Trendon Holiday, 5-0 with Houston. Signed they release him. Denver picks him up and was 11-0. So Trendon Holiday, the only player in the NFL, 16-0. So take that home and quiz your kids. And so I think good things are going on. And here's another thing I like. So there's certain kind of tiers of quarterbacks, right? There's the Mannings and the Bradys and the Drew Breeses and Aaron Rodgers. And then there's this group of quarterbacks, and it's almost like the choke club. It's like very easily flustered. This is the Jay Cutlers. This is the Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan at times. And I think that's what Flacco is. I think
got a cannon arm, is going to have huge games. He led all the playoffs last week in yards, was the #1 rated quarterback last year. But there's, when it's all on the line, there's something up there that just doesn't add up.
Well, there's no question when you're lining up all the positions and you're checking which side gets the advantage. Quarterback's no question. That's the easiest call of all of them. There's no question the advantage is in orange on Saturday.
And so I think if Boom and Doom can get in there, I think Jack Del Rio can get creative on his schemes. I think Denver's got a great shot. Now, the one disadvantage you're going to see for the Broncos, if you're fair and you look page to page, is our safeties, right? Ed Reed, who's been around for a while, an All-Pro, he's pissed, right? He's so-called had the flu last time when Moreno jumped over him, right? He's going to come in pissed, and him and Williams together, eight interceptions compared to our safeties with 1. And by the way, if you're doing the math at home, folks, there's 114 defensive backs out there that have more interceptions by themselves than our pair of safeties. Now, our safeties have been doing a good job of not letting anybody get behind them, deep. But, who had a big game last time we played the Ravens? Dennis Pitta. Pitta had 125 yards, 2 touchdowns, and I think he dropped 2 or 3 passes on top of it. So keep Flacco running, scared, and then hopefully our safeties can step up here for the playoffs and do well.
Well, I think the other thing you like is that you look at the teams that are remaining, you look at the 8 teams that are remaining, I think Denver gets the advantage in the kicking game against every one of those teams. When you put Prater and Colquitt together, advantage Denver. And given what the weather may be, it may come down to field position. It may be 7 or 8 punts, and forcing the Ravens to drive the ball 80, 85, 90 yards is going to be an advantage for Denver all day.
Absolutely. And another fun fact for you out there, when you look at Thomas and Decker together, there was only one receiving core of two starting receivers, which is Julio Jones and Roddy White that had more yards, 51 more yards than our 2 receivers, but we had 5 more touchdowns than those guys. So I think truly we have the best 1-2 duo of receivers going into the playoffs, and in a sick way, and I don't know why, I'm hoping that Tom Brady comes to town, and that's the team we have to prove it against. That's the team that's rubbed our face in the dirt. That's the Josh McDaniels team. Belichick, everything we hate about that organization, mostly because they're always good. And that's the team I want.
Well, and 3 weeks, 4 weeks before the end of the season, it looked like there was no way that game was going to be in Denver. And Houston losing and the Patriots losing a couple times that was unexpected. Now when there's a chance for that game to be in Denver, that makes this game a must-win, obviously. And
how great for football to have Peyton Manning going up against Tom Brady. We're not going to count our eggs before they've hatched, but that's what I'm really hoping for.
Sure. That's a 42-41 game. Look at that one.
Let's do it. So anyway, that's all we're going to have. We'll certainly be there after the game. I think we've done a good job of getting all our prizes out. I think we've got one left, and that's Scott Stewart out there in California. We didn't forget about you, buddy. We're going to throw in a little extra for you. And I want to also tell you guys about something special coming up next week. On next Wednesday, we're going to have a 2-part series featuring our favorite fan. We're a fan show about our 4 fans. And what better way to celebrate that than to do a special on the Barrel Man. And we actually had a time to sit down with his lovely wife, Becky, and his daughter, Melissa. And so next Wednesday, a 2-part series. You're going to hear, some great stories about a legend. Unfortunately, rest in peace. We lost the Barrel Man a couple years ago, and what a icon he is in Denver. He's in the History Museum here now.
As recognized with a particular franchise as any fan, anywhere, any sport.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. There was a survey done by ESPN, and they said who's the most recognizable fan out there, and he finished #2 behind Jack Nicholson, who's always at the Laker games. So when he's up there with Jack Nicholson, and I've said this for a long time, there should be 2 statues outside of the Broncos stadium, and that should be John Elway, the most impactful player ever, and the Barrel Man, the most impactful and recognizable fan. So you don't want to miss that. We'll be there. Danny and I'll be here after the Broncos destroy those Ravens, and they're going to be cheap too. The Ravens are they're going to get in your face. They're going to give you the extra hit. We're going to be here celebrating, talking about the Patriots, and then have you booked your hotel yet for New Orleans?
I know people.
You know people. You've got all kinds of contacts. All right. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll catch you after our Bronco victory.